Hi, my name's Larry Duncan, and I'm a co-producer of a cable TV series called Labor Beat. And I'll talk a little bit more about Labor Beat in a few minutes, but I'd like to first begin by talking about alternative television and media activism, because Labor Beat, which is a program dealing with what's happening with unions, what's happening with working people, and from a point of view that you would normally see on broadcast television, that's part of a whole movement to do something about the way we are all being manipulated by major broadcast corporate television. And that, in the labor movement, that awareness that working people and their organizations have to do something about this has been growing over the years, and has also been developing over the last year through the course of the Persian Gulf War, the war against Iraq. During that, as the military briefings began to come down, we all watched this on CNN or other stations, there began to develop a hue and cry even within the major media, ABC, CBS, C-SPAN, and so on, that the military were controlling the news feed and dictating to the media what they're going to talk about. And there were certain periods, they began to sit around and have discussions about this, because there wasn't any fresh news coming from the front other than what was being processed by the military and by the Pentagon and by the White House. This became an issue even within the established commercial media, the fact that there was something wrong, something amiss with how news was being generated, and the ability of the networks to be able to cover a story. And this understanding obviously also was beginning to take place very rapidly within the anti-war movement. And some of us, I think, can remember the big demonstration in Washington, where there were perhaps 300,000 anti-war demonstrators who came there. And at that demonstration, one of the people that were invited to speak, which was a unique thing for anti-war demonstrations, a first, was someone representing the media activist community. Laura Flanders, who was a spokesperson for fairness and accuracy in reporting, got up and spoke. And what she talked about was that during the news coverage, the media would go out and they would cover the anti-war demonstrations and attempt to appear as though they were being impartial. Then they would also cover the pro-war demonstrations. But what they didn't do was that in the studios they invited the anti-war the pro-war, the pro-administration speakers to come and sit down in an easy chair, have a chat, in a sense being invited into the living room of the American public. But the points of view of the anti-war demonstrators were simply limited to very short sound bites of a chant or a holding a picket line out in the street. And this is an important distinction, that the anti-war movement was not allowed to come into the studio and sit around the easy chairs with all the commentators and to develop all of the subtleties, nuances of that other point of view. Well, there was also within labor a developing anti-war point of view, which and also a debate going on in the AFL-CIO, and it more or less was kind of a standoff because the certain conservative sections of the AFL-CIO wanted to be completely uncritical of the administration's policies, and there were other large sections that wanted to criticize. Labor Beat, which is a program originating from Chicago, got a program from Labor at the Crossroads in New York, and they covered there the protest of a lot of unions in the New York City area against the war. Well, that was one of the shows that we brought in. We do both our own shows that we originate in Chicago, but we also bring in shows from around the country, and we then send them out to 14 different cities, two of which are broadcast venues, one in Philadelphia and WYBE there, and also down in Salinas, and then the rest are cable around the country. and it keeps us busy. I have a clip that I'll show you now, which is from one of our shows, and I'll give you just a little bit of background of how that happened. Probably a lot of you out there have already seen a very popular film called Me, which is about a plant closing in Michigan. I think it's Flint, Michigan, and Michael Moore was the producer of that. Last year about this time, there was an oil, chemical, and atomic workers local in northern Indiana, in Elkhart, Indiana, and the people there were facing a plant closing. And what they did was they wrote a letter to Michael Moore and asked him if he could come down there and make it appear as though he was making another film. And this would put pressure on the plant there, American Home Products, to stop closing, their plans to close down the plant. And then the OCA local called us, Labor Beat in Chicago, and asked us to come down to play the part of the film crew, and which we did. But we also decided to tape it anyway, and we decided then to edit it, those events, and we put it together in a 20-minute piece called "Could Be Your Job Next," which was a number of copies were made by the local down there. They put it on in the plant, or they put posters around in the plant and then put it on in the community. And the Indiana Federation of Labor bought a number of copies, which they sent to their legislators in Indiana. So let's take a look at a little segment of this. This is Michael Moore as he's going around trying to get in and visit the plant.
And you guys went over with a film crew from the union, and you tried to get a chance to talk to some of the executives and to film part of the documentary over there. Tell us what happened.
Well, we wanted to talk to the vice president who was there today, and they wouldn't let us speak to him, and then he sneaked out the back door.
I am told you have to leave.
My name's Michael Moore. Sir?
You'll have to leave the property.
Well, we'd like to...
You'll have to leave the property, sir.
We'd like to talk to Al Jablonski. We understand he's here today.
Leave the property.
Could we just speak to
No.
Al Jablonski?
The man said leave the property. You go across the street and wait for him.
Who's the man who said that? Who said that? We just would like to talk to either the plant manager or the vice president.
We'll go in the front door.
We can go to the front door?
Go to the front door.
Yeah, okay, which way is that?
Connie knows where it's at. Connie
You
knows
try
where
that?
it's at.
We can.
You let us do that?
You said you want you on the property. That's all I got to say.
The front door is the property.
I said you can't be on the property.
They
So
said
you'll
that's
have to leave, or I'll have to ask you to leave or get you
Do
removed.
you feel funny asking this question knowing that you probably are going to lose your job too?
No comment.
No comment?
No comment.
Would you rather be doing something else?
No comment. No comment. So leave the property, please.
Well, what do you want
Here
to do?
comes
What
some
should we do?
workers if you want to interview.
Huh?
Yeah, there's some folks over here that would
Yeah.
like to talk to us.
Well, why don't we
I
just
asked you
see
to
if...
leave the property. I mean it. I asked you all to leave the property. Okay. I'll have to have you removed. Hey, everybody.
Well, why don't you just see if we can talk to Mr. Jablonski? I think, you
Dick,
know...
would you like to meet Michael Moore?
yeah, Roger Rabbit.
Hi,
you
how you
doing?
doing?
Nice
Nice
to
to
meet
meet
you.
you.
How are things going here?
Not so good here, about like today. Kind of lousy, you know.
Yeah.
Kind of American way lately. I
Yeah.
thought it'd be the Japanese, you know. But
Yeah.
our own guys are turning us in.
Yeah, funny thing about that.
Nice
isn't
to
it?
meet you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Hang in there.
Hey, Daddy, come on over.
Well, that was just a segment from that video, and what it shows here is a growing interest in unions around the country, working people and their organizations, to turn to using television, using the media in new and creative ways. We've all begun to start thinking about this problem and to try to look for kinds of solutions. Another thing that's happening nationally is that an organization has been formed. It's called Union Producers and Programmers Network, and there are a little over 200 individual producers and groups that are part of that. I'm a member of it, and Labor Beat is a member of that. And what we are trying to do is to bring ourselves together and to look at some of these problems, how unions can use the media and get to use television to get their message across. And one thing that we're beginning to talk about is the development of a national labor cable channel. And of course that may be a little while off, but we're beginning to, realize that's what that we need to do. I'm here in Portland, just kind of on a visit, but I wanted to encourage those of you out there in the community who are union members, or you think of yourselves as working people, and certainly the vast majority of us are. You may not be in a situation where you're a member of a union, but you support the idea of working people organizing together to defend their right to a good paying job and job security. I encourage you to come down here to the Access Center and get involved and start learning how to use the equipment, start producing shows that inform the community about the kinds of struggles that you're in to improve your situation as a working person. And I'm sure that you'll be able to get in contact with people easily enough through the Access channel here. So this is Larry Duncan from Labor Beat saying 10-4, and get out there and start using those cameras.